Death Run 79, a race for survival during the late summer of 1979, the USS Dace, SSN 607, was a year removed from a collision with a tanker in the Strait of Gibraltar, and was waiting for orders to enter the yard in Mare Island for much-needed repairs. She had been temporarily sent to the Caribbean, but she was operating under severe limitations. Red tags hung everywhere, indicating many pieces of equipment were out of service. Her rudder and fairwater planes were operational only in emergency mode. Fairwater planes are also called sail planes because they are attached to the boat's sail as shown. The fairwater planes are on the sail, and help to control depth and up-down angle of the boat. They were doing a jam dive drill to measure the max angle the boat would take if these fairwater planes were stuck in the down position. Turns out, they did get stuck, and because of the cool response and excellent training, a disaster was avoided. After that incident, the Dace headed to Antigua for a scheduled friendly port visit. Like most nuclear submarines, air conditioning was vital. It kept the condensation down so all the electric and electronic gear did not malfunction. Also, since nuclear subs stay submerged for a long time, air conditioning is vital for the comfort and health of the crew. Most nuclear boats had a large air conditioning system, fueled by heat transfer using lithium bromide, and two smaller ones fueled by freon of the equivalent, and that also depended on the intake of cold seawater to condense the refrigerant. Meanwhile, Hurricane David was brewing up in the South Caribbean and headed for Antigua. The Dace remained in port to ride out the storm. Now here is the sequence of events that almost spelled disaster for the Dace. While the hurricane was buffeting the boat, a first-hand narration is in the book. The chill water pump for the Libro unit seized up. Repair work began immediately, but the normal spare parts supply chain was interrupted by the storm. So the boat had to rely on the R-12 smaller units. After the weather improved, the CO decided to head to Curacao, just off the coast of Venezuela. They were running both R-12 units. Curacao was only 500 miles from Antigua, but on the way, a leak on the chill water pump shorted out critical relays, which took R-12 unit number 1 offline. This left only one R-12 to air condition the entire boat, which was not enough. Because of overload, the second R-12 unit failed. Now there was no air conditioning for the boat at all. Machinery and personnel were at risk, so the CO cut short the run to Curacao and headed north toward Puerto Rico. The Navy had a base there at Roosevelt Roads. It was referred to as Rosie Roads in submarine slang. While on that transit, a second hurricane, Frederick, came right over their position. This forced the boat to stay submerged. A nuclear sub with a rounded hull was in great danger of rolling over on the surface with 100 miles per hour winds. The ambient temperature inside the boat began to rise. In a short time, the temperature rose to 150 degrees, and in the engine room, 185 degrees Fahrenheit. The CO ordered a deep dive to hope the ambient seawater temperature would provide some cooling. They also cranked up the knots to get to Rosie Roads as soon as possible. During the eye of Frederick, the Dace came to periscope depth and snorkeled fresh air into the boat. Soon that brief respite was over, and back to the deep the Dace headed. The cooks opened the doors to the reefers, the freezers, to get some cool air. That barely helped, plus all the food ended up being spoiled. Men were passing out. Watch times were kept to 15 minutes as men rotated as they could. One man even went to the torpedo room to hug a fish to try to cool off his body heat. Meanwhile, the USS Seahorse, SSN 669, was operating near Rosie Roads. They were ordered to make heavy knots and provide any and all assistance as needed to the stricken Dace. The two crews established communication, and the skipper of the Horse could tell the captain of the Dace was getting weaker and weaker. Meanwhile, Frederick had caused the island of Puerto Rico to lose power. Dace approached and made landing. Two ambulances were waiting. When the weapons shipping hatch was opened to begin to retrieve the men, the onlookers reported a super-hot tornado of a wind emerged that smelled worse than rotting maggots. The men in the greatest danger were placed in the ambulances. The others were brought out and laid on the pier. No shore power was available, due to the loss of the power grid, so the Seahorse kept their reactor critical and ran emergency shore power over to the Dace. Large air hoses were attached to the other hatches with large cooling fans supplying somewhat cooler air. The ambient temperature was 90 degrees. Some 24 men were taken to the base hospital, and 6 remained for over a week, and 4 were kept in longer. What could have been a terrible tragedy was averted by quick thinking, quick-acting submariners who were trained to do so in such an unanticipated emergency. Picture as Dace at pier in Rosie Roads one day after rescue. Death Run 79 was over.